morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we have got the full deck list, the full set list for Pokémon Card 151, but there's a catch. When I say full list, that's actually not true. We don't have the full list of trainer cards. We do have every single Pokémon card. I have a picture of every single Pokémon card in Pokémon Card 151. But as I mentioned a moment ago, there is a catch, a very large catch. And the very large catch is this. This is the best image we've got. And it is not, unfortunately, good enough quality to allow us to really zoom in and see everything and be able to see and read all of the cards. That's a bad thing. But actually, even though we can't zoom in and read all the cards, and I think I've been pretty clear that it makes me sad and I want to zoom in and read all the cards, we know quite a lot here, ladies and gentlemen. We know quite a lot indeed. So let's go and have a little bit of a gander. Now, I should mention that over in Japan, there are exactly 3 products that are being released. We've got the 2 Pokemon card files, one featuring Blastoise, Venusaur, and Charizard, and one featuring a Pokeball, and they are, they're just card files, little binders with some packs in and the free promos featuring the first partner Pokemon from Gen 1, which is kind of cool. And then we've also got booster boxes. And all of these products are currently available for pre-order over on the Pokemon Center over in Japan. Now, as I've told you, there is a bit of a caveat to ordering these over in Japan, and that is, very simply, they only ship to Japan. Which means if you want to be ordering these, you need to be going to use a proxy address, which isn't the end of the world. I use proxy addresses regularly. I actually have a parcel coming from Japan today from my proxy address, but it does mean things are a little bit awkward. It means you'll have to pay for shipping. It means you'll have to wait for them to get here. It means you'll have to navigate websites in Japanese, etc. It's not the end of the world. It's not the most difficult thing ever, but it is worth bearing in mind that, well, that's a thing, ladies and gentlemen. That's a thing. Cool? Cool. So with all of that borne in mind, let's have a little bit of a look at what we know about this set so far. Well, we know who all the EXs are. We might not be able to read all of these, but we can now give you a complete list of all of the cards that get EXs in this set, because we can look at the set list, and even though we can't make out all of every card, we can still have a look and see which ones are EXs and which ones are not. So we can answer for absolute certainty whether your favourite Pokemon is getting an EX or isn't. So we know that Venusaur is getting an EX. Obviously, I'm showing you images of just regular EXs, etc. These are not the actual EXs from the set. As I've told you, we don't have good enough images for them yet. We are getting a Blastoise EX, which makes sense. We're getting Venusaur, we get Blastoise. And then obviously we are getting a Charizard EX, because come on, ladies and gentlemen, it's Charizard. Of course we're getting a Charizard EX. So this all makes perfect sense. We're getting these 3, jobs are good 'un. But that was kind of expected, honestly. We are getting an Arbok EX. And this is kind of a big deal, because Arbok, I mean, firstly, my wife likes Ekans and Arboks. We've got many. We've got like 20 snakes at home. We have a whole reptile room full of snakes and spiders. And I know spiders aren't reptiles, but there's snakes and spiders and various reptiles, and it's awesome. So in this house, we like Ekans and Arbok. One of the tables at my wedding was themed after Ekans. Arbok doesn't get the fancy cards. Like, go on to pkmncards.com and go and search Arbok. Arbok has never, and I mean in the history of the game, never gotten a chase card like an EX, GX, V, anything along those lines. Arbok doesn't get the chase cards. This is the very first time. This is a pretty big deal. We are getting a Ninetales EX, and I know Ninetales is pretty cool and pretty popular, and Ninetales does get the fancy one sometimes. That's not terribly exciting, but still, I know there's a lot of Ninetales fans out there who are going to be pretty excited. Wigglytuff is getting an EX. Now, Wigglytuff, I've always had a bit of a thing for Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is awesome. But one of the things that's always been kind of interesting about Wigglytuff, it doesn't generally get the fancy cards like Arbok, but it did get a GX, but it got it in the family deck over in Japan, which means it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Although it is worth pointing out, way back in the day in Hidden Legends, there was a Wigglytuff EX. So Wigglytuff has gotten a little bit of love over the years, but I do think it's fair to say it is a little bit of love. But still, Wigglytuff is coming, that's cool. Golem is getting an EX. Now, I adore that Golem is getting an EX here. Golem has had a little bit of love. Golem actually had an EX back in Generations. And then if you go back a little bit further again, there was Golem EX in EX Dragons. And let's not forget there was Crystal Golem way back in the day in Skyridge. So Golem has actually had a little bit of love over the years. Golem has had some of these cards, but I'm a huge fan. Golem is officially my third favourite Pokemon from Gen 1. It's Porygon Snorlax Golem. That is the ranking as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah. For me personally, I am absolutely loving that Golem is just getting some love here. I love seeing a bit of Golem. This makes me very happy indeed. We know that we are going to be getting an EX of Kangaskhan. Of course, Kangaskhan's, it's Kangaskhan, right? Everybody loves Kangaskhan. Of course, Kangaskhan not only got an EX back last time we had EXs, actually got a Mega EX, which was kind of cool and very playable. And Kangaskhan did get a GX more recently. So, again, this is a Pokemon, and I kind of like this. Even when I'm talking about Pokemon like Golem and Kangaskhan, let's be clear, they have had these cards in the past, but let's not be pretending that they've actually been given all of this love for years and years and years. Even ones like Wigglytuff and Kangaskhan that have had some love have generally not been given love all the way along. Jinx is getting an EX, which is, Jinx is one of my least favourite Pokemon. I'm not excited about this. But it is worth noting that Jinx, like we said with Arbok, never had a chase card. We've never had a Jinx EX, GX, V, or any of that. Jinx has never gotten a chase card, just like we saw, not a proper one, just like we saw with Arbok. So even though I'm not a fan of Jinx personally, it's kind of cool to see that coming in here. And then we've got ourselves Zapdos. And to be fair, right, Zapdos has gotten a bunch of love. There was a Zapdos EX last time around, and there were actually 3 Zapdos EX. If you go back in the day, there was one in Fire Red Leaf Green, there was one in Team Rocket Returns, and there was a promo as well. So there were literally 3 different Zapdos EX. But you'll notice it's just Zapdos. Now, I'm cool with this. Zapdos, even going back to Gen 1, when I was a child, Zapdos has always been my favourite. If we look at the legendary birds, Zapdos has always been my favourite. So I am absolutely down with this. But it is a little bit sad that Moltres and Articuno are missing out. But we know for a fact here, we can see it on the picture, Zapdos gets, the other 2 miss out. So that's what we've got in terms of EXs, but there are a couple of other things that need to be pointed out. Like the fact that Vilebloom has an ability. And when Vilebloom has an ability, you should all be a little bit worried. Now, maybe it's like the one from Unbroken Bonds that lets you flip a coin and if heads, choose a special condition. But maybe it's the one from Burning Shadows. If it's your active, your opponent's basic can't attack. That saw a bunch of play. Or it could be like the one from Boundaries Crossed that makes weakness 4 times, which did see a little bit of play here and there. Or maybe it's like the one from Ancient Origins or the one from Undaunted, both of which were item lock. I am not guaranteeing, and I think this is very important, I am not guaranteeing that this Vilebloom is going to be a phenomenal, ridiculous, broken card. But I absolutely am saying that many Vilebloom in the past have been ridiculous, flat out broken cards. So yeah, I know I'm not the only one that looked at this and went, hang on a second, Vilebloom's got an ability. But I have looked at this and gone, hang on a second, Vilebloom's got an ability. And I do find that very, very interesting indeed. Oh, and one more thing I've got to point out, although really this is more of a vanity thing for me. Porygon's attack is 1 colorless energy, no damage, it looks like no damage anyway, wall of text, a whole paragraph of text. And if any of you are a big Porygon fan like me, you would have got very excited back in the base set when you saw the Porygon card. And if you were a child like me, you would have then got very, very, very confused because base set Porygon was weird. Because, of course, it had 2 attacks. Conversion 1 let you change the defending Pokemon's weakness, and conversion 2 let you change Porygon's resistance to a type you liked. And this was weird back in the day, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very weird. But remember, of course, Porygon now is a basic that turns into a Stage 2. But Pokemon 151 is a set, which is bringing only Gen 1 Pokemon in. So things like Porygon, where there's 2 other evolutions, but we're not getting them, they do have to get a little bit creative. Also, by the way, I'm sure some of you have noticed, so let me say it now. Yes, I'm fully aware that when I was going through my list of EXs, I didn't mention either Alakazam or Mew, because we've seen them, we've talked about them at length. I was listing off the Pokemon that are getting EXs that we haven't already seen, but just because I'm sure some people are going to pick me up on it, yes, fine, okay, Alakazam and Mew are getting EXs. That is fair to point out. And there we go. We know what the EXs are. We know that Vilebloom's got an ability, which I think is incredibly relevant. We know that Porygon's got a big wall of text, which even if you're not a Porygon fan, is actually very, very relevant here, because it means that we are getting some weird thing going on to cover for the fact that it really should have 2 evolutions that it doesn't have. So there we go. There's plenty more we're going to be talking about from Pokemon Card 151, and look, my vow to you is the same as it always is. I've told you this is the most exciting set ever. I'm not even kidding. I'm replaying Gen 1 right now. Old school Game Boy, no remake, none of that rubbish. I am replaying Pokemon Blue right now. I am a huge fan of Gen 1 because I've got the whole nostalgia thing going on. This might well be the most exciting set ever. So, yeah. Every piece of news we get, every update we get, I'm going to be here, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what I do. For now, I want to know what you think about all of this, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk Pokemon card games, Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, all kinds of fun things. Oh, and get shoutouts on the channel like the very appropriately named Kanto Royal T, who's been a supporter of ours for a while and is a very lovely person, so shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.